I'm damn near certain that a tragedy will happen soon in Wano, and I fully believe that the Straw Hats and the Samurai Alliance are going to get a fat L handed to them. But the question is how that will happen. Could it be a plot device that even the great Ichiro Oda is deathly afraid of? Death in Wano is what we're going to be talking about for this video. Who could possibly die in Wano for a tragedy, and if anybody is even going to die in the first place. So let's just start with that. Now I think the general consensus is that there will be a tragedy coming in Wano still, and that's because of numerous reasons. One of the most obvious ones is that because Wano is based off a Kabuki play, which is a 5-act play, and in the third act, the act we are in right now for Wano, there is usually this climatic, dramatic moment that is usually a tragedy. Now some of you might say we already had the tragedy because of Oden's flashback, and that was great and all. I did love Oden's flashback, but I just don't think that was like the climax moment of Act 3. It doesn't make sense to me. For me, that flashback was just a little more information, a little more insight on Oden and Momonosuke and Wano and the people of Wano and the samurai and also the Red Scabbards, just everybody in Wano pretty much, and really their motivations, and also of course like it was dope seeing Whitebeard and Roger and all that kind of stuff. So even though I really liked the flashback and I liked Oden's character, and while I did think that his story was very sad and his death was very heroic, it just doesn't seem like the tragedy and the big climax moment of Act 3 that we're supposed to have. So in my opinion, that climatic moment still has to come. And if you examine the Kabuki play again, following Act 3 is Act 4, and usually that's when like the big war happens, and there's definitely going to be one in Wano as well, and Oda's definitely starting to set that up. So like Act 3 is probably ending soon, so this tragedy, this big moment, if it's going to happen, it's probably going to happen pretty soon. Like all the forces are pretty much already here. People that we were expecting that were gonna come later, like Marco, Jinbei, Denjiro revealing himself, Nekomamushi, Izo, they're all here already. Meanwhile, everybody's kind of going on their route with relatively no issues. There's been some clashes here and there. Of course, early on you had Supernova battle with like Kid and Apu and Zoro and Luffy against Apu, and then most recently you have Luffy versus Ulti in page 1, but none of them have been like a full out brawl. It's been interrupted and cut off, so we're really not at like a war level yet, but it's definitely getting there. Everybody's starting to get into that main palace area, and when they all get there, there will be some kind of escalation to like take the war off and make it like this crazy war. But at the same time, that escalation can't be like Luffy gets punched by Kaido, he gets hurt, and they're both sides are just like, oh, okay, let's fight, it's wartime. Like, that's a very simplistic way to do it, and that's not really how Oda does it. We're expecting better writing and storytelling from Oda, and with the way Wano is set up, just like a Kabuki play, an incoming tragedy makes the most sense for the escalation of the war. And a tragedy also makes sense to cause the shift in tone. I talked a little bit about this in my How Luffy Will Win the Wano War video. If you haven't checked that out, check it out here. But in that video, I talked about how whenever Luffy and the Straw Hats go up against an opponent that we as the viewers think that they're too hard to beat, there's a pattern that it kind of follows. It starts with a reality check where we realize, oh, this opponent is not to be messed around with. That in itself causes a shift in tone, and then it gets followed by some sort of resolution, whether that's a power-up, or the Straw Hats get away, or they just simply lose. But before you get to that resolution, there has to be a reality check and a shift in tone. And so far, the tone is not serious at all, okay? We've still had a lot of gaggy moments. The Straw Hats and the Samurai Alliance aren't really, maybe not the samurais, they're kind of like Kinemon and everybody, they're taking this very seriously, but the Straw Hats are still kind of like not, it doesn't seem like they're really ready for war. And talking about like the gags and the tone overall, don't get me wrong, I still enjoy the story. I like seeing the Straw Hat interactions and the funny moments that Oda uses the gags. I still find the gags funny. But even for me, some things like Sanji leaving Nami to Big Mom just to chase some prostitutes, or Sasaki getting easily tied up by Denjiro just because of the Kiyoshiro disguise, those things I didn't quite like that much, and that's just me. Some people really hate the lighthearted tone in Wano, so like the tone obviously has to change. And that ties back to the tragedy, but what kind of tragedy will Oda use? Could it perhaps be a death? Now right away you might be saying, Oda doesn't kill anybody besides flashbacks. We literally just saw Pound's big ass face with Lola and Chiffon surviving a hit from Oven, and yeah, Oda is not well known for killing people. He's very soft on death. It's one of his weaknesses. You gotta admit that, no matter how much you like One Piece. But let's examine the times he has killed people, like Whitebeard and Ace at Marineford, Pedro in Whole Cake Island, and most recently Yasuye in Wano. Also, Pound should have died in Whole Cake Island, obviously. But in all those cases, it was an arc in which case Yonko was an enemy. And now we're in an arc where two Yonko are the enemies. Of course, there's other deaths in the series that aren't Yonko related, but like I feel like those didn't really hit as hard, and I'm also pretty surprised that like Oda killed off both Virgo and Monet in Punk Hazard. It kind of boggles my mind still a little bit that he did that. And also poor Absalom got off-panel killed by the Blackbeard pirates. Even Oda must have realized he was a shit character. But with deaths that really had a high impact, came from arcs that involved Yonko. And now you might be saying, well, Wano already had Yasuie's death, and I don't think that's enough, okay? We didn't even get to meet him for that long. He was a great character, okay? It did hit for me, okay? I don't think like Yasuie's death was meaningless. I thought it was pretty well set up. But I think even like Pedro's death was more impactful because we spent more time with him. Yasuie, while he was a great character, we just saw a few like chapters with him here and there. He was a nice guy and all. We saw a little bit of him in the flashback and how he was a great character. But I don't think his death was the big tragedy of Wano. If Oda's going to really showcase the power of the Yonko and use death as a plot device, it has to be more high impact than the Yasuie death we saw earlier in the arc. So let's just assume Oda does end up using death as the plot device, as the tragedy in Act 3. Let's break down some possible options. Now, the most popular candidate to die in Wano is undoubtedly Trafalgar Law, okay? Law as a death candidate in Wano it's been like shared all over the place. There's been even fan fiction of it, and the explanations could go very deep. I saw like a video by Blackleg Vinsmoke where he was connecting like Law's inspiration and Kaido's birthday and stuff, but to me there's a very simple explanation as well, and it comes from Law's character development. Law's story has been pretty thoroughly fleshed out. We saw that in Dressrosa. We got a full flashback of him, saw his sad childhood and backstory, his relationship with Corazon, and like that whole thing with Doflamingo and why he hated Doflamingo. And then in the end of Dressrosa, that kind of gets resolved where Doflamingo gets defeated and taken away, and even Law had like a moment where he said, like, I've been waiting 13 years to see the fall of Doflamingo. So if you look at Law's character arc, that could have been it right there. Like, he had a grudge against Doflamingo and like built up, did his own thing on sea, met his friends and everything, and then eventually defeated Doflamingo, and like he fulfilled that dream of his. Obviously, he's also stated that he wants to find the One Piece and become the Pirate King and all. And he has more ambition beyond taking down Doflamingo, but I think if you compare him to like Ace also had more ambition before he died. He wanted to make Whitebeard the Pirate King. He had a family, right? He had more to live for. But his main goal, his main question in life was like his own birthright, right? He was someone that was hunted down because he was the son of Roger, and he really questioned a lot whether he deserved to be alive or not, and he had that question answered was yes, he did deserve to be alive. He found a family with the Whitebeard pirates, a proper father figure in Whitebeard, and also two great brother figures in both Luffy and Sabo, and he did have more to live for, but when he died with a smile on his face. And now I ask you this question: if Law dies right now as a D-Clan member as well, if he does die in Wano, would he die with a smile on his face? I think yes. I think his purpose of defeating Doflamingo has been secured, and if he knows like his crew is safe and everything, and like they're in good hands, I think he would die with a smile on his face, just like every other D-Clan member. Now, another thing with Law is his OP Devil Fruit, the Ape Ape no Mi, where he has like the Eternal Youth Surgery or Eternal Immortality. The translation's a little off between the anime and the Viz manga. But essentially, he could perform an operation on somebody and give them like eternal youth. However, performing that operation, which is very overpowered, kills the user. So this leads people to believe that Law will die because Oda wouldn't just introduce this incredibly strong power for it not to be used at all. And the popular headcanon that comes from this is like they're in the midst of battle and everything's like going wrong, like Kaido and Big Mom obviously super strong. They're stronger than they like seemed, and like Luffy is on the verge of death, and then Law utilizes his operation, the Perennial Youth, uses on Luffy and saves Luffy. And I gotta admit, that would be a very chilling moment, right? Even like the fanfic that drawing that I just showed you was pretty chilling. Like if you read that for the first time, you're like, oh snap, that's a crazy thought. But I think if I really break it down, I just don't like that idea for numerous reasons. One is just the idea of Luffy getting like eternal youth. that just doesn't seem like that would be something Oda does for Luffy. Maybe it's a way for him to make up the lost years he lost, like using Gear Second and like all those hormones from like Ivankov back in Impel Down. But as far as him just getting like eternal youth and staying young forever, I don't think that like Luffy would even want that, and Oda would like use that for Luffy. But also the bigger thing is, like, say he saves Luffy, what happens then? He's still Luffy. He's not going to have a rage power up and turn Super Saiyan. Like, this is not Dragon Ball Z. Like, one of the biggest things about One Piece is that there are no crazy power-ups coming from nowhere out of like just pure rage. If you're not strong enough to beat somebody else, you're just not strong enough and you're probably going to lose. So in my opinion, that would be a cool moment, but it really doesn't resolve anything, and the tragedy will kind of be wasted in a way. But maybe the operation could be used on some other people. I did think about some other options here to kind of tie this in with another potential death target, Momonosuke, right? Some people have been thinking maybe Momonosuke dies as like the big tragedy to like really incite the war. That would like motivate everybody a lot, right? That's like the future shogun. But I don't think, first of all, let's just get this out of the way. I don't think Momonosuke is gonna die because he's too important to the story. He's got Zunisha. I made a whole video on Momo. If you haven't checked it out, check it out there. But Momo, he's got too big of a role in the story, in my opinion. And also, I don't think Oda is killing an 8-year-old when he's afraid to kill off Pound. But maybe there is a moment where like Momo is on the edge of death and then Law like saves Momo, and like that also proves his like alliance, which has been questioned in the story by like Shinobu and all. That proves his loyalty to the alliance. Ooh, and maybe that could be a way like Momonosuke powers up and like he grows older in the way, right? I didn't even think about that. I talked about Momonosuke possibly growing older because of like Shinobu Toki or Juribani, but maybe Law's eternal youth operation could make him more powerful and stronger as well. So that's an option. And then the other one I thought of is Beppo. And this one to me makes the most sense because it's been seen that Beppo and Law are very, very close, okay? Even though Beppo's the navigator, he's essentially Law's right-hand man, right? They've known each other for a very long time. They clearly really care for each other, and if Law's gonna use that surgery on anyone, I don't think it would be someone like Luffy. I think he would definitely use it on his crewmate, someone like Beppo. So it could be the same scenario. The war is breaking out, Beppo goes Sulong, but it's still not quite enough, right? And then Kaido whacks him, Thunder Bagua to Sulong Beppo, and then Beppo's about to die, and then Law uses that surgery, and Law dies, and that's kind of like a okay. A supernova just died, Law died saving his crewmate. That would definitely be a big time reality check that comes early on and changes the tone completely. So yeah, those are the options I thought of for Law if he were to use the operation. Besides that, I don't think he would just straight up get killed. That did almost happen to him multiple times in Dressrosa, where he got his arm chopped off, shot multiple times. He almost died in Dressrosa. Another reason to view him as like a death candidate because he's had a lot of death flags. But to be honest with you, I just don't feel like Law dying would be right at this point. Like, I feel like he's too popular. He's been showcased a lot, like especially with the Straw Hats. He's pretty much been with them since Punk Hazard. And if he were to die, I feel like the best time to do it would have been Dressrosa, where his story was getting concluded in a way. But the options I mentioned could be possibilities. They would make for good storytelling elements and would definitely cause a big tragedy and reality check for the Straw Hats. But let's move on to another option, Kinemon. This is one that I thought of like on randomly. I know some people I read in the comments have thought about that as well as an option. And I'm not gonna lie, this one would kind of hit me harder than the Law death. Like Kinemon, we've been with him even longer in a way. Like since Punk Hazard, when we met him as just this goofy pair of legs, and then seeing him grow as like a character and like a leader. Like, he's definitely been a very goofy character, but he's the leader of this whole operation. Momonosuke is like the figurehead. He's the future shogun. He needs to be there and everything, but the whole plan is Kinemon's plan. He's definitely gotten a little lucky here and there, but like organizing the samurai and gathering weapons and recruiting everybody, and he's done this jumping 20 years into the future and really got right into action. He's the leader of the operation and of the Red Scabbards, so what better way to really prove that to have him have this like sacrificial moment. In this moment, he sacrifices himself and he says, this is bigger than me, you guys must move on and complete this plan and make sure Momonosuke takes over Wano and kick Kaido and Rochi out of Wano. That would be a pretty crazy moment. I would be hella sad if Kinemon dies, I'm not gonna lie. And what's even sadder is he wouldn't be able to reunite with his wife. And that's one of the death flags there. Like him not like meeting his wife yet, like that is kind of setting up as like, is he ever going to meet his wife? And he also had that line of him saying like, I fully expect to die in this war. I think my luck has run out. So plenty of death flags for Kinemon, and it would be a very impactful and sad death. So Kinemon's death as a tragedy would work really well, but I kind of don't want to see it because I don't want to see Kinemon die. But finally, let's move on to the final option I have, who is Inuarashi. Now, Nekomamushi and Inuarashi, they've been set up to have this bicker fest for a very long time, ever since Odin's death. Essentially for the past 20 years they've been fighting, right, to the point where they like rule different times of the day. Even when Jack invaded, they refused to work together for some reason, and a lot of people think them reuniting and fighting Jack will be like that moment where they're finally back together and forgive each other and all that. But what if one of them dies before they're able to fully make up and become friends again? Inuarashi dies. And I say Inuarashi because he lost his leg, right? That's a big time handicap. Like Neko lost his arm and all, and that sucks, but that's just the arm. Inuarashi's got to be balancing and bouncing around on one leg. And maybe it happens during like the fight against Jack, or against like King or Queen, or like Kaido or something, right? They're fighting them and like they finally team up and they're getting each other and like, okay, we're back together, we're finally understanding each other, and then boom, Inuarashi dies and there are so many words left unspoken. That, just thinking about it's kind of making me emotional. That I think is a very sad moment as well. It would not be as big of a tragedy, I think, as like Kinemon or Law dying, but like it could be a very minor thing that happens. It could happen in addition to like Kinemon or Law. But yeah, those are my top options for who could possibly die in Wano. Now, do I actually think a death is going to happen in Wano? I really don't know at this point, okay? Before Pound came back alive, I probably would have said yes. Like, I think, like, to Yonko, like, this is some great, you have to make some kind of sacrifices to show, like, they are not to be messed around with. But with Pound coming back, that just, you know, I lost trust in Oda a little bit, at least in terms of using death as a plot device. Oda is clearly soft with death, and even in the SBS, he kind of referenced, like, death is just, like, somebody's dream ending. You don't need to kill somebody, and that's why Luffy doesn't kill people. So yeah, I really don't know at this point, but I do think a well-executed death could really change this story and take it to a whole nother level. And any of the options I just mentioned, I think would work. But if a death doesn't happen, whatever, it just has to be some kind of like dramatic tragedy that really changes the tone. And what I really don't want to happen is like him going halfway of like Law pretending to use the Ape Ape no Mi, or Inuarashi almost dying, or Kinemon almost dying and then showing back up like Pagaya style or Pound style or Pell style. Please don't have that. Do not do that again, Oda. This is not the time for it, alright? Like Marineford, you did Ace, and like you didn't have Ace come back. You gotta follow through with this because you're going against 2 Yonko. The consequences have to be real. But what do you guys think? Do you think Oda is actually gonna kill somebody else in Wano? And if so, who do you think is going to die in Wano? Let me know in the comments below. Now, as of this video, when this video goes up, I should be at 1,000 subscribers, which is bonkers to me, okay? I did not expect to get here this fast. So thank you guys so much, all the new subscribers that joined pretty much within this past week. I'm very grateful for all of you. This is a huge milestone for me. We're gonna keep it moving and keep climbing, but I just want to shout you guys out and say thank you for allowing me to hit this milestone. It really means a lot to me. I'll probably be doing a celebration stream of some sort later today, so be on the lookout for that. But as always, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy, please hit that like button. Helps a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to keep up to date with when I'm posting videos or when I'm doing live streams, you gotta hit that subscribe button. Let's keep the ball rolling. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell as well to join the crew. Follow me on Twitter. I'm DKing4. I got another video for you right there, a playlist right there, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.